Dear students, please open your textbook before you start listening. Underline important lines and mark difficult words. Use earphone or headphone for full concentration. Happy listening and happy learning. Page number 8. Next topic, the making of nationalism in Europe. If you look at the map of mid-18th century Europe, you will find that there were no nation states as we know them today. What we know today as Germany, Italy, and Switzerland were divided into kingdoms, duchies, and cantons, whose rulers had their autonomous territories. Eastern and Central Europe were under autocratic monarchies within the territories of which lived diverse people. They did not see themselves as sharing a collective identity or a common culture. Often, they even spoke different languages and belonged to different ethnic groups. The Habsburg Empire that ruled over Austria-Hungary, for example, was a patchwork of many different regions and people. It included the Alpine region, the Tyrol, Austria, and the Sudetenland, as well as Bohemia, where the aristocracy was predominantly German speaking. It also included the Italian speaking provinces of Lombardy and Venetia. In Hungary, half of the population spoke Magyar, while the other half spoke a variety of dialects. In Galicia, the aristocracy spoke Polish. Besides these three dominant groups, there also lived within the boundaries of the empire a mass of subject peasant peoples. Bohemians and Slovaks to the north, Slovenes in Carniola, Croats to the south, and Romans to the east in Transylvania. Such differences did not easily promote a sense of political unity. The only tie binding these diverse groups together was a common allegiance to the emperor. How did nationalism and the idea of the nation state emerge? 2.1 The aristocracy and the new middle class. Socially and politically, a landed aristocracy was the dominant class on the continent. The members of this class were united by a common way of life that cut across regional divisions. They owned estates in the countryside and also townhouses. They spoke French for purposes of diplomacy and in high society. Their families were often connected by ties of marriage. This powerful aristocracy was, however, numerically a small group. The majority of the population was made up of the peasantry. To the west, the bulk of the land was found by the tenants and small owners, while in Eastern and Central Europe, the pattern of landholding was characterized by vast estates which were cultivated by serfs. In the column, some important dates. 1797. Napoleon invades Italy. Napoleonic Wars begin. 1814 to 1815. Fall of European. The Vienna Peace Settlement. Next, 1821. Greek struggle for independence begin. In 1848, revolutions in Europe, artisans, industrial workers, and peasants revolt against economic hardships. Middle classes demand constitutions and representative government. Italian, German, Magyars, Poles, Czechs, etc. demand nation states. 1859 to 1870. Unification of Italy. 1866 to 1871. Unification of Germany. 1905. Slave nationalism gathers force in the Habsburg and Ottoman empires. Page number 9. In Western and parts of Central Europe, the growth of the industrial production and trade meant the growth of town and the emergence of commercial classes, whose existence was based on production for the market. Industrialization began in England in the second half of the 18th century, but in France and parts of the German state it occurred only during the 19th century. In its wake, new social group came into being, a working class population and middle class made up of industrialists, businessmen, professionals. In Central and Eastern Europe, these groups were smaller in number till late 19th century. It was among the educated liberal middle classes that ideas of national unity following the abolition of aristocratic privileges gained popularity. 2.2. What did liberal nationalism stand for? Ideas of national unity in early 19th century Europe were closely allied to the ideology of liberalism. The term liberalism derives from the Latin root liber, meaning free. For the new middle classes, liberalism stood for freedom for the individual and equality of all before the law. Politically, it emphasized the concept of government by consent. Since the French Revolution, liberalism had stood for the end of autocracy and clerical privileges, a constitution and representative government through parliament. 19th century liberal also stressed the inviolability of private property. Yes, equality before the law did not necessarily stand for universal suffrage. You will recall that in revolutionary France, which marked the first political experiment in liberal democracy, the right to vote and to get elected was granted exclusively to property owning men. Men without property and all women were excluded from political right. Only for a brief period under the Jacobins did all adult males enjoy suffrage. However, the Napoleonic Code went back to limited suffrage and reduced women to the status of a minor, subject to the authority of fathers and husbands. Throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries, women and non propertied men organized opposition movement demanding equal political rights. In the economic sphere, liberalism stood for the freedom of market and the abolition of state imposed restriction on the movement of goods and capital. During the 19th century, this was a strong demand of the emerging middle classes. Let us take the example of the German speaking region in the first half of the 19th century. Napoleon's administrative measures had cleared out of countless small principalities a confederation of 39 states. Page number 10. Each of these possessed its own currency and weights and measures. A merchant traveling in 1833 from Hamburg to Nuremberg to sell his goods would have had to pass through 11 custom barriers and pay a custom duty of about 5% at each one of them. Duties were often levied according to the weight or measurement of the goods, as each region had its own system of weights and measures. This involved time consuming calculations. The measure of cloth, for example, was the LA, ELLE, which in each region stood for a different length. An LA of textile material bought in Frankfurt would get you 54.7 centimeter of cloth. In men's, 55.1 centimeter. In Nuremberg, 65.6 centimeter. In Freiburg, 53.5 centimeters. Such conditions were viewed as obstacles to economic exchange and growth by the new commercial classes, who argued for the creation of a unified economic territory allowing the unhindered movement of goods, people, and capital. In 1834, a customs union or Zollverein was formed at the initiative of Prussia and joined by most of the German states. The union abolished tariff barrier and reduced the number of currencies from over 30 to 2. The creation of a network of railways further stimulated mobility, harnessing economic interest to national unification. A wave of economic nationalism strengthened the wider nationalist sentiments growing at the same. 2.3 A new conservatism after 1815. Following the defeat of Napoleon in 1815, European governments were driven by a spirit of conservatism. Conservatives believed that established traditional institutions of state and society like the monarchy, the church, social hierarchies, property, and the family should be preserved. Most conservatives, however, did not propose a return to the society of pre revolutionary days. Rather, they realized from the changes initiated by Napoleon that modernization could in fact strengthen traditional institutions like the monarchy. It could make state power more effective and strong, a modern army, an efficient bureaucracy, a dynamic economy. The abolition of feudalism and serfdom could strengthen the autocratic monarchies of Europe. In 1815, representative of the European power, Britain, Russia, Prussia, and Australia, who had collectively defeated Napoleon, met at Vienna to draw up a settlement for Europe. The Congress was hosted by the Austrian Chancellor Duke Metternich. The delegates drew up the Treaty of Vienna of 1815 with the object of undergoing most of the changes that had come about in Europe during the Napoleonic Wars. Source B. Economists began to think in terms of the national economy. They talked of how the nation could develop and what economic measure could help forge this nation together. Friedrich List, professor of economics at the University of Tübingen in Germany, wrote in 1834, "The aim of the Zollverein is to bind the Germans economically into a nation. It will strengthen the nation materially as much by protecting its interests externally as by stimulating its internal productivity. It ought to awaken and raise national sentiment through a fusion of individual and provincial interest. The German people have realized that the free economic system is the only means to engender national feeling." New words in this page. Conservatism, a politically philosophy that stressed the importance of tradition, established institutions and customs, and preferred gradual development to quick change. Page number 11. The Bourbon dynasty, which had been deposed during the French Revolution, was restored to power, and France lost the territories it had annexed under Napoleon. A series of states were set up on the boundaries of France to prevent French expansion in future. Thus, the Kingdom of the Netherlands, which included Belgium, was set up in the north and Genoa was added to Piedmont in the south. Prussia was given important new territories on its western frontiers, while Austria was given control of northern Italy. But the German Confederation of 39 states that had been set up by Napoleon was left untouched. In the east, Russia was given part of Poland, while Prussia was given a portion of Saxony. The main intention was to restore the monarchies that had been overthrown by Napoleon and create a new conservative order in Europe. Conservative regime set up in 1815 were autocratic. They did not tolerate criticism and dissent and sought to curb activities that questioned the legitimacy of autocratic government. Most of them imposed censorship laws to control what was said in newspapers, books, plays, and songs, and reflected the idea of liberty and freedom. Now, Figure 6. The Club of Thinkers, anonymous caricature dating to 1820. The plaque on the left bearer the inscription. The most important question of today's meeting: how long will thinking be allowed to us? The board on the right list the rules of the club, which include the following: 1. Silence is the first commandment of this learned society. 2. To avoid the eventuality whereby a member of this club may succumb to the temptation of speech, muzzles will be distributed to members upon entering. Now in the column of activity, plot on a map of Europe the changes drawn up by the Vienna Congress. In the column discuss what is the caricaturist trying
Page
to
number
depict. 12. Associated with the French Revolution. The memory of the French Revolution nonetheless continued to inspire liberals. One of the major issues taken up by the liberal nationalists who criticized the new conservative order was freedom of the press. 2.4. The revolutionaries. During the years following 1815, the fear of repression drove many liberal nationalists underground. Secret societies sprang up in many European states to train revolutionaries and spread their ideas. To be revolutionary at this time meant a commitment to oppose monarchical forms that had been established after the Vienna Congress and to fight for liberty and freedom. Most of these revolutionaries also saw the creation of nation-state as a necessary part of this struggle for freedom. One such individual was the Italian revolutionary Giuseppe Mazzini, born in Genoa in 1807. He became a member of the secret society of the Carbonari. As a young man of 24, he was sent into exile in 1831 for attempting a revolution in Liguria. He subsequently founded two more underground societies. First, Young Italy in Marseilles, and then Young Europe in Bern, whose members were like-minded young men from Poland, France, Italy, and the German states. Mazzini believed that God had intended nations to be the natural units of mankind, so Italy could not be continued to be a patchwork of small states and kingdoms. It had to be forged into a single unified republic within a wider alliance of nations. This unification alone could be the basis of Italian liberty. Following his model, secret societies were set up in Germany, France, Switzerland, and Poland. Mazzini's relentless opposition to monarchy and his vision of democratic republics frightened the conservatives. Metternich described him as the most dangerous enemy of our social order. In the figure 7, Giuseppe Mazzini and the founding of Young Europe in Bern, 1833. Thank you, students. Please listen twice for better understanding. Hope you liked the video and subscribe for upcoming videos.